The line.
This is WeatherScope.
Boy, you have had heavy snow today in many areas from the Great Lakes into the Northeast. Hello, I'm Bob Stokes. Now, the wintry weather will create a messy morning commute for some of you. We're working on this story in the Forecast Center tonight, and Jeff Morrow has an update.
Thanks, Bob. Indeed, yet another snow producer for the Northeast, parts of the Northeast, though, and it's really interesting that places like Boston, Massachusetts may never really get anything more than a couple of snowflakes, if that. Well, not too many miles to the south and to the southwest, it is snowing hard, and we may end up with a half a foot to maybe close to a foot in some places if it continues to really snow as heavily as it is right now. Let's show you what it looked like a little bit earlier. This is Chatham, New Jersey, and it has been snowing heavily in some of the areas north and northwest of New York City. Chatham is just a few miles west of Newark. We started seeing snow here late during the morning, and it got heavier as the afternoon wore on, kind of a heavy, wet snow. In fact, indeed, around New York City and Newark itself, it was mostly rain, so you had to get into elevation really to get the snow. No major road problems here, but as always, if you're headed north out of New York City or into the northern hills of Jersey, you're going to get into some heavy, wet snow. Royal Oak, Michigan, pretty much the same deal, although the snow really has started to taper off now. All winter storm warnings and advisories have been dropped for southeast Michigan now, but earlier you did pick up anywhere between 2 to maybe as much as 6 or 7 inches of snow around the Detroit metropolitan area there in Wayne County. Again, watch out for some slippery spots tonight as the may get a little bit of freezing on some of the highways, particularly on some of the untreated road surfaces. All right, so it is diminishing in intensity in the western areas of this whole system, but we still have some locally heavy snow going on here in parts of southern New England. We have a high perched here to the north. We have a low here, actually 2 lows to the south, and it's kind of a squeeze play going on in between the two, and a very sharp cutoff line here from near Albany, New York over to just south of Boston, north of which we don't really think there's going to be much in the way of any precipitation. And here joining me now in the Forecast Center to talk about that and maybe how much snow we're going to get and is there any more snow on the horizon is Tom Moore. I know that's a lot of questions, Tom, but let's deal with this one first of all. Snow not making it very far into New England right now. Why is that?
Well, you talked about that squeeze play, and we see that sometimes when high pressure strengthens, as we see in eastern Canada, and the colder air is forcing its way down, the winds aloft are out of the northwest, and it's kind of forcing all of the precipitation to be squeezed into a little band, as you say, from New York State on into southern New England, and it just can't penetrate to the north. or if it does, it's only a very slow process.
All right, let's go ahead and show the folks what we're talking about as far as the setup here. And again, Tom, 2 areas of low pressure, and here's that high to the north, which I guess in a way is protecting parts of central New England.
It sure is. The high is strengthening, and even during the afternoon when we had pressures falling because of this low developing off the East Coast, the pressures were actually rising slightly at Boston. So the high pressure was winning the battle of keeping the colder, drier air over northern New York and northern New England and fighting off the advancement of the precipitation. So the precipitation has made very, very little progress to the north. As a matter of fact, most of this is south of this line, and any little bit of green north of that line is probably snow that's not even reaching the ground.
All right, I mentioned that over here in Detroit, it looks like things have pretty much started to wind down, and it doesn't look as impressive around Buffalo as it did earlier, where we had some thunder snow actually earlier today. I guess the main band here is from just south of Albany over into Connecticut and just north of New York City.
Right, we had incredible dynamics or lifting in the atmosphere. We saw that last night in Missouri. We had that again today in western New York, where we had about 5 to 7 inches in here. But as you say, Jeff, the snow here is winding down, and our focus of attention is in basically on extreme southern New England, maybe the Hudson Valley and the Catskill Mountains, but most of the precipitation will be in here tonight.
All right, so anybody leaving New York, even though it's raining there now, if you head north of town into Connecticut or up the Hudson Valley, you are going to get into some heavy wet snow this evening. Tom, let's quickly talk about the next storm, which we think will be a low developing down here over Florida by Thursday afternoon. Where do you think this system is going to head from there? Is it going to affect the Northeast, or is it going to miss?
That's a real good question, because there's a couple of schools of thought, and we're debating this right here at the Weather Channel. But considering the fact that the trough aloft is positively tilted, that would tend to bring this low a little bit out to sea. And if it goes out to sea, there's going to be very little precipitation in the Northeast. If it comes up the coast, we're going to look at some snow. That's a good question. Right now, we're tending to think that this low may stay off the coast, keep most of the snow away, but we'll keep an eye on that situation, especially for Thursday night and especially during the day on Friday in New England.
All right, but in the meantime, of course, we've got that snow just north of New York City, sandwiched in between there and Boston. We'll keep you updated on that. Thanks, Tom. And of course, if you want any additional information, check out our website at weather.com. All right, now let's go back to the studio and get a look at the rest of the nation's weather and your forecast for tomorrow. Here's Bob.
We've got both of those. Thanks a lot, Jeff. The southern end of that same storm system was shaking things up in the Sunshine State today. At least 2 confirmed tornadoes touched down in North Florida. One of them hit this area near Jacksonville. Mobile homes were battered, trees and power lines came down, and 3 horses were killed when a high voltage line touched a metal fence near the horses. So we all need to be cautious of lightning because it kills more people.